Welcome to The Jig is Up. My name, of course, is Darcy, and I'm on my own here tonight, but I want to send a shout out to all of our pledgers that have pledged over the last week or two. So Jerry, thank you. Miranda, thank you. And Jen, thank you. If anybody's interested in getting exclusive content or some rewards from our show, you can go to our Patreon page, which will be in the link. The link will be in the description of this episode. Check us out there. You can pledge anything from $1 and up per month, and it helps support our show. It helps us to be able to get out and get more stories, more guests, more interesting conversations going. And leading into that, I have a guest today who was absolutely a blast to talk to. Very interesting things to say, and he is Graham Anders. He is the creator and editor and everything at Lii Noovel. And if you don't know what Lii Noovel is, you need to find out, because it is Métis Nation of Alberta news. But he has a history of journalism, which he explains to us. But it's the articles are well written. They're not biased in any way. They're just seeking answers to questions. And I absolutely love the articles. He's bringing up some issues I think that people aren't even really talking about, and he's asking questions about things that that need answers, but they're pretty interesting, and you're not hearing about them on a day-to-day basis in any major media. They really don't care about these stories. So phenomenal conversation. I hope you guys enjoy it. So here it is, Graham Anders. All right, so joining me today is Graham, and he is the author of Lii Noovel. And welcome to the show, Graham.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. Great to have you. So let's start off and just tell us a little bit about yourself and how Lii Noovel came to be.
Well, I don't even know if Lii Noovel has come to be yet. So I've been a member of Métis Nation of Alberta for quite a few years. Before that, I was a member of Métis Nation of Saskatchewan. Before that, I was a member of Métis Nation of Alberta again. And I'm pretty sure I was a member of Métis Nation of Saskatchewan before that too. So I grew up right around Prince Albert, Saskatchewan. So okay. My family's right from St. Louis Batoche area. Mm-hmm. And so it's interesting. I mean, we grew up not knowing that we weren't Métis. I always say Michif, because the language that my family spoke is what people have started to call Michif now.
Yeah.
Whereas my old auntie Leona Boyer, she used to say, Michif is not the language. We are Michif, and we're the language. So it's always so. I guess I use the word Michif and Métis fairly. I don't know. They seem to be used fairly equally on my part.
I really like how she put that, though. That's a really good way to look at things.
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, a lot of our culture, the Métis culture that originated in the Red River area and then kind of moved over toward, especially St. Louis Batoche, that area. I had grandfathers that were killed in the 1885 resistance.
Yeah.
The language was so much a part of the culture, the culture was so much a part of the language. So, it's always been a huge source of pride for me. And I'm getting to discussing Lii Noovel, believe me.
No, that's great. That's great.
Yeah. But another one of my grandfathers several generations back was a man by the name of Pierre Guillaume Sayer. And Um, Pierre is credited with his trial for selling furs to the Northwest Company is credited as being the end of the Hudson's Bay Company's monopoly on the fur trade.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so there's there's all this stuff. My one of my grandfathers, Jerome Henry, he was actually he was a spy. Gabriel Dumont had him inserted into Middleton's group, really,
Oh, wow.
to act as a guide for Middleton and his group. So my grandpa Jerome, he led them on a bit of a wild goose chase, and then actually was able to flee from them and get to Fish Creek, Tyrone Coulee, and get the message to all the other Michif, all the other Métis there, that, hey, you know what, Middleton and his men are coming and they're planning to attack us here.
Wow.
Yeah. So where this sort of ties into Lii Noovel, so much of the stuff that I see going on in Métis politics today, and this is across the Métis homeland, I see so much. There's such a lack of accountability, and being who I am, I was a journalist for more than a decade, actually, like a professional full-time journalist.
Yeah. Well,
And
that's cool.
yeah, and so I asked questions for a living, and I haven't been in journalism for, I don't know, 11 or 12 years now.
Yeah.
But I guess just I reached a sort of a boiling point, or a tipping point a couple of years ago, where I couldn't, knowing who my grandfathers and grandmothers are and what they sacrificed. I couldn't just sit idly by anymore and allow stuff to kind of go the way that it was going without starting to ask questions. And was what sort of planted the seed for Lii Noovel. And I mean, Lii Noovel in Michif, Lii Noovel just means the news.
Yes.
So yeah.
Well, I think it's interesting because I think there's a lot of power that can be had just from simply asking questions, which I'm sure you experienced being a journalist professionally, but also doing Lii Noovel. It's a very powerful thing to just simply ask questions.
Well, it's powerful to ask questions. I wish that there were more powerful answers.
Yeah.
And that's the disappointing part for me. Always the disappointing part for me is that I refer to Lii Noovel in the sort of the editorial. We don't get any answers.
Yeah.
We seem to get pushed off. We get brushed aside, just like so many citizens of the Métis Nation seem to feel as though they've been brushed aside. And there's no need for that. We're, historically speaking, the Michif were governed by themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's exactly, that's exactly, we're known as the people who rule themselves.
Yeah.
And for some reason that's gotten lost. Well, I mean, there's all sorts of reasons, but for some reason that's really gotten lost over the years. And we've allowed ourselves to be governed by people who aren't interested in leading. They're interested in governing. That's my perspective.
Yeah. And that's a great way to put it too. Now, I just was thinking about this. Like when we look at the Métis world, there's not a lot of Lii Nouvelles out there. Like there's not a lot of, I guess, press or media as far as Métis media that holds the Métis, quote, governments to account. Like you see, on federal and provincial and municipal politics, it's always the media that's holding the politicians feet to the fire saying, well, we dug up this information. What's going on? And we dug up this little bit of stuff you wanted to keep secret. And so I think media has always kind of been a check and a balance on government. And do you think that's maybe why? Because for years there was, other than the organization created media, there really wasn't that check and balance. Do you think that may be part of it, or?
Well, I think that's definitely a part of it. I mean, if the people who are supposed to be making the decisions are also running the source of communications, then that's not news. It's not journalism. It's PR. It's public relations.
Absolutely.
And the fact that I've got some experience with the public relations world as well. And you want to take your message and you want to get it out there to the people as you want it to be presented.
Yeah.
And I wish that there were more Lii Nouvelles. I honestly, right now, Lii Nouvel consists of myself, a couple of volunteers.
Yeah.
And we draw no revenue. It's entirely a hobby, or actually a hobby isn't even right. It's a passion project.
Yeah.
Because I think about my grandpas and grandmas, and I think the least that I can do is start to try and ask questions. And it's very revealing, the fact that the questions don't get answered, even when we've really only put out a couple, 3 or 4 stories, what I would call proper stories now.
Yeah.
But they've been unbelievably time consuming to generate. They've been incredibly frustrating to gather information. And the huge reason that is because, and these are ones that are just related to the Métis Nation of Alberta. Métis Nation of Alberta doesn't respond to us at all. And that was the story. That was the story before Lii Noovel came into existence too. I would phone as a citizen of the Métis Nation of Alberta. I would call the office. I would send emails, and no one would get back to me.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a common theme. Like I talked to a woman earlier in the week, and same story. They're trying to get answers, and they actually have their local regional offices phoning the police on them to get them out of their office. So it's like I always say to people, even if you're not doing anything wrong, by acting that way, you make everybody believe that you are doing something wrong.
Well, and I mean, you know what? People are smart, and in my experience, Métis people are very politically aware. Mm-hmm. I always love to say that the joy of political discussion and political debate that Métis people seem to derive is it's unlike anything I've ever witnessed, but I'm also a part of it. So, and here we are, and it's all good to talk broad, to talk in generalities and things like that. But right now and the jig is up. You guys did an episode on this a couple months ago about the Métis Judiciary Council.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
And the fact that the MJC hasn't been in effect for a few years now. And this whole thing really kind of snowballed back in December. I went to a special assembly of at MNA it was a special assembly to discuss the Métis Judiciary Council and what the direction forward was, and then also to vote on something that people didn't really have a lot of information about.
Mm-hmm.
So I stood up in the meeting and I started asking Audrey Plutchuk questions, and I didn't feel like I got any answers.
Oh, really?
Like, Audrey's response was, "Oh well, yeah, we were given the okay by the membership to conduct a review of the Métis Judiciary Council, and then we did the review, and we took that to be a vote of non-confidence in the MJC." And my point to Audrey at that meeting was, well, being given the authorization or the support for a review is a completely different thing than a vote of non-confidence.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I started writing emails and making phone calls and whatnot to the MNA provincial office, and I'm still waiting for them to have a provincial council meeting so they can discuss whether or not they'll give me access to things like copies of motions that were made to get rid of the MJC, to get rid of the Métis Judiciary Council. And it's just so counterintuitive. It baffles me. This is information that is supposed to be publicly available, or publicly it should be available to the members of MNA. It's just now that because it's not being made available, I'm making it publicly available as I get information.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that sounds like it was the kind of the start of the first article that you wrote, talking about the MJC, and then also the vacation of the vice president's chair or seat.
Well, again, that was just sort of, and that was, I mean, the Métis Nation of Alberta bylaws are explicit in what is supposed to happen if the vice president's chair becomes open.
Yeah.
And for some reason, provincial council or the executive, or maybe it was Audrey Poitras herself, I don't know. They decided, well, we're just going to carry on without that position.
Yeah.
And that's a crucial, again, you talk about checks and balances. That's a crucial check and balance for the operation of the Métis Nation of Alberta.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And someone, and again, right, the requests that I've made that are being considered by provincial council, whether or not, we as members of Métis Nation of Alberta will be allowed to see them, that includes justification for getting rid of the vice president's position.
Yeah, because effectively by this point they've they made it not even there. Like,
well, yeah, and if you go through, it's all very I use the word questionable because there's all sorts of questions behind these decisions. But even if you go back and look at the annual General Assembly information packages from 2015, from 2015 and 2016, which would have been the year that would have covered the vice president's, the former vice president's resignation, there's no mention of it in any of that information. Any of the information that was handed out at the AGA, there is nothing in there.
Really? So it's like it's just a forgotten about position at this point, or?
Well, I guess it was a forgotten about position, or I don't know. I don't know. How do you wake up one morning and just forget? Oh yeah, we were supposed to have a vice president for the last 3 years.
See, and that's what I mean. Like, even if there was no nefarious goings on, why so secret about it? Why so closed up about it? Why not just simply follow the bylaws and put a new person in? Like, these things just, it doesn't make sense, right? I mean, it seems like a simple thing. Like, you have bylaws. This person resigned for personal reasons. Follow the bylaws. seems pretty simple.
Well, yes, it does seem very simple. And it does seem really straightforward, but clearly it's not. So I've approached every single member of provincial council by way of email. And I always put read receipts on these emails so that I know if people are seeing them.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Yeah, and I think every member of provincial council has responded with a read receipt on these emails, except for Bev New and Karen Collins, who are the secretary and the treasurer of Métis Nation of Alberta. Even Audrey Putcher, who's the president, I'm asking these questions directly of her. I'm asking these questions directly of the senior executive officer, Aaron Barner. I get told by the communications department that it's a decision that rests with Karen Collins or with Bev New or whomever. So I try to reach out to them. I don't get anything back. It's frustrating. It's so frustrating. And especially because right now, this is such an important time in our history.
Yeah.
We've finally been, through the Powley decision, through the Daniels decision, et cetera, we finally have this recognition. We finally have a seat at the table, so to speak, that actually has four legs underneath it. Instead of, trying to wobble around on a monopod.
Yeah, yeah.
And we're not getting this information.
Yeah.
Our traditional way was that our leaders would lead according to the will of the people. But the people, the citizens, now have become the last people to know what's going on. And that to me is shameful.
Yeah. Well, and like I said earlier, I mean, it's not like this is, you're not the only voice out there. I mean, even when I go to events and stuff, I mean, myself not being a member of the M&A, I tend to, take that outsider's view. But I can't even count the number of people that I've been to for, Métis Week events and stuff like that. When I'm talking to them, they're saying the exact same things you are. Like, they can't get answers. And sometimes it's not even about very heavy duty topics. It's they want to know what's going on with, urban housing and how you can get more information on that. And they'll phone and email, and they can't get anything. So it seems to be a common theme, and I just don't understand why. I mean, that organization should be there to serve its members, right?
Well, one would hope. One would definitely hope, and it's exactly that. There are people who aren't able to get information about Métis Child and Family Services Society. People try to find out information about the Child and Family Services.
Yeah.
And I hear frustration all the time about, well, I can't get anyone to call me back or whatever. And it's interesting because being, I guess, who I am and how I don't like to take, I'm not willing to take silence as an answer for anything.
Yeah.
I all it does is it just causes a person like me to go out and do more research. And
Yeah.
and the questions that I come up with after that are mind numbing. Like, and I don't know. I want to give everybody the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
I want to give Audrey Putcher the benefit of the doubt. I want to give Bruce Gladue the benefit of the doubt. And Aaron Barner and Karen Collins and Bev New and everyone. And I'm calling out specific individuals because these are the ones who have answers to a lot of the questions that Lii Noovel has been posing.
Yeah.
And it's stonewall after stonewall after stonewall. Like here's an example. As I'm talking to you right now, Darcy, I'm looking at a copy of the financial statements for the year ended March 31st, 2016.
Right.
And someone put these on the website. Actually, I think these are the only set of financial statements I think that are available on the Métis Nation of Alberta website.
Yeah.
And you look at it and you see, okay, well, the auditors have said that these are a bunch of entities that the association owns or holds in trust, but meaning the MNA owns or holds in trust, but they don't have the ability to exercise direct financial control over them. And I look here, and the very first one that I see here, Alberta Métis Historical Society. Well, being kind of snoopy, I looked at Alberta Métis Historical Society. It is also mentioned in the 2017 files.
Yeah.
So a friend of mine went and pulled the corporate registration. Well, you know what? Métis Nation of Alberta Historical Association. It was struck from the records. It was struck from the corporate records in 2006.
Oh, wow.
And it says it says here, September 2nd, 2006, it was struck from the corporate records. And it also says in here that it was struck from the records because they didn't file their annual returns.
So that means when you say struck from the records, just for everybody who's listening, that means they're no longer registered as a corporation in Alberta because they didn't file that one return or whatever, right?
Exactly.
So they're listing it on their audited financials as a corporation, but there is no corporation.
It doesn't exist. It's been struck from the records.
Wow, and 2006 you said, so that's 12 years.
12 years now, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So, and I mean, these are the things like, why is that still on the record? Why is it that, why is it that in 2017, and I'm sorry, I'm actually working on a database that I will make available to the Métis citizens that, is putting all this stuff out.
Yeah.
That there were in 2016, it listed 13 different holdings, including the Alberta Métis Historical Society, which we know in 2016 had been defunct for 10 years.
Wow.
There are 7 more corporate entities listed in 2017 than there were in 2016.
So they were running around. It seems like they were registering corporations like crazy then.
Well, I can't say that for sure. I haven't pulled all these documents yet because you know what? Honestly, every time you go and pull a corporate document, it costs you $30.
Yeah.
So 20 different corporations, that's $600, and I'm trying to run a business and do this as a hobby.
Yeah.
Or a passion project, as I'd said earlier.
Yeah.
But there's things in here now like Métis Crossing Foundation. That wasn't present in the 2016 report. The Métis Entrepreneurship Fund Incorporated. That wasn't in the 2016 report. A couple of more numbered companies that weren't present in the 2016 report.
Well, and then the other thing is because they're doing the audited financials of the M&A, they actually, because those are separate legal corporations, they can't go in and touch those, right? So it's not like by reading the financials of the M&A, you're also going to get these corporations that they own.
Well,
is that correct?
Well, you won't get the details.
Yeah, like you'll get the names, but you won't get their audited financials, is what I'm saying.
Well, no, not necessarily. But the fact that what bothers me or what alarms me is that the 2016 report doesn't say anything about any of these companies.
Yeah.
But the 2017 report does.
Yeah.
And then you take another company like Keto Client Data Systems Incorporated, which is, I thought it was a company owned by Rupert's Land Institute, but it says in the 2016 report, it says that it's inactive, and it's included as a for-profit organization owned by MNA. It says it was inactive in 2016, but it wasn't inactive in 2017. In 2017, it shows revenues. I think it's like $250,000.
Wow. Okay.
So, and again, I'm not trying to say that anyone's doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
But why the shell game?
Yeah, like really just answer basic questions like where did that money go? What are these corporations? Let's tie all this together and make it really for the members. It should be quite like almost should be a booklet that comes out. Here's if you want to. I mean, the thing is owning private corporations is actually good for the nation because they can generate their own economy. So really, that's something you should be proud of and saying, "Hey, we generated $250,000 worth of revenue here, and we put it towards this."
Well, and
right,
and then instead, what we end up with is we end up with financial statements that don't seem to tell the same story from year to year. We end up with decisions being made by probably or possibly just being made by a single individual or two or three individuals. So, and because we only have three members of what's supposed to be a 4-person executive, those three members are Audrey Putra, Bev New, and Karen Collins that are potentially making these decisions for the entire nation. Shame on you.
Yeah. For
not even being willing to let people know what's going on. I sound like a politician right now. I'm very aware of that. And I need to say, I have no interest in running. I have no interest right now in running for a political position with MNA. And one of the reasons I think that is because I think that with some journalistic skills and some passion about it, I may be able to do more service to MNA and to Métis people in general than I would by going along and towing a line. Not a single member of provincial council has responded to any of these requests.
Wow.
Not one.
Wow. Well, and you know, I think you're right. I mean, I think it's great for people who think, you know, let's get in the system and let's change it from the inside. I would absolutely encourage people to do that. I mean, I think there should be a change of leadership at this point. I mean, it's been 20 years of the same leadership, but even beyond that, I think there needs to be people on, you know, the journalistic side. There needs to be people being the politicians, and I think that's that check and balance system. And if everybody respects everybody, then it works well, you know. And I truly hope that with what you're doing. Even, you know, I know they got an election coming up this September. If there is any new people, I truly hope they start to realize people are asking questions, and there's more and more questions, and there's more and more people. Like, at some point in time, we need to answer these questions. That is going to come to a point. So, I mean, that's my hope, is that with what you're doing especially, it's not only asking the question, but it's putting it in people's minds that, look, you know, these questions are asked, and they will eventually need to be answered.
And that's the thing. And you know what? If everything is being done by the book, if everything is legitimate and justified and everything like that, come out with it.
Absolutely.
And you know, you bring up a really important point too, Darcy, and that is that I feel, as a Michif man, and I've explained where my family comes from. I've explained that. I have a responsibility to my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren and so on and so forth to make sure that this stuff is done properly, or at least done with the proper amounts of input. And, voter turnout for MNA elections it's awful. It's terrible.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
If there are 500 people, say, that attend an annual General Assembly, but there are, according to the one bit of information that I did get from Aaron Barner of MNA, the senior executive officer, there are 36,000 members.
Yeah.
36,000 enrolled members, and 500 people making the decision about what direction we go. But even when those 500 people make the decision, it seems as though it's being ignored by Audrey, Bev, Karen, and whoever else is involved in the decision.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, and I think, I love the way you say that, where you have a responsibility to, your kids, your grandkids, and generations to come. Because I feel that's what it is too. It's a responsibility from where we came from to where we're going.
And this is like, so, and no offense or anything. I mean, you're very upfront about it. You're not even a member of the Métis Nation of Alberta, and yet you understand that this has an effect on you and your family.
Yeah.
And that, like, how is that not completely obvious to all the other members that are out there? We all have an obligation. We have an obligation to our grandparents and to our grandchildren.
Absolutely. Well, and you have an obligation to your grandparents, your grandchildren, your community, the people around you. You have these skills where you were a journalist, you have those skills. It's not like everybody in the Métis Nation does. So you can do what you're doing, and that's fantastic. So, people, I guess that's kind of where you're being responsible to your community, and to all those people that need this information. And I truly hope that it starts to hold leadership to account. And I as much as I love a conspiracy theory, I really hope that in the end we find out there's really nothing nefarious going on.
Well, exactly. I kind of doubt that, there's a man smoking a cigarette behind a fence. Excuse my reference to JFK, but I need to back up for a second and just say, I mean, that's very kind of you to single me out as a person who has these skills. But you know what? There are a whole lot of us out there that can contribute so much to calling to speaking truth to power.
Yeah.
And I can't do it alone. I have no interest in doing it alone. The few people that scrape a bit of time out of their days or weeks to read over this stuff, or whatever, we need to be in this together. We need to be in this as a community. And so if I can put one plug in, it would be editor, EDITOR, at liinouvel.com, LIINOOVEL.com.
Yep.
And if you have some information, please share it. I'm not interested in being sued. So,
how come?
So anything that we're putting out, it's run through a lot of tests.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to single anyone out more than I have already. But you know what? A couple of articles ago, we put out some pretty on the fringe stuff.
Yeah.
But it was 100% fact based.
Are you talking about the episode or the issue you put out where there was just absolute silence and
yeah,
where there was the convicted the person who was convicted of theft at one point in time?
Not convicted, pleaded guilty.
Right. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the one that had the headline "Kiama Still."
Yeah.
Yeah, which is in Michif means silence.
Nice.
Yeah.
See, and I think you may have opened a floodgate now, because I know for a fact in Region 1 especially, there are a lot of community people that are unhappy, and they're seeking answers, and they're trying, and they're writing letters, and they're sending emails, and they're not getting anywhere. So you may start getting some emails from them. But the truth is I think that's great. I think if you can, because I know what you're going to do is take what they give you and then and then run that through and fact check and figure it out and dig into it. And so I think that'd be amazing if we could generate that kind of media around the operation of these organizations.
Well, it would be, and I've actually, to that end, I've approached contacts that I have outside of the Métis Nation. There's one longtime editor-in-chief with major Canadian newspapers that I've been talking about, and this person is really interested in what we're doing and really wants to help out, because this person sees the benefit in what it is that Lii Noovel is trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
And so it's just, there's so much work that we need to do. So let's do it.
Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying the conversation with Graham so far. If you want to hear the rest of this conversation, you are going to need to head over to our Patreon page and have a listen there. It is going to be our exclusive content. It's going to be our kind of additional content for our patrons. So you can go there and check that out if you want to hear that. The link to the Patreon page will be in the description of this show. As well, for all the new fans of Graham or hopefully new fans of his that we've created here, you can check out all of his work, and we'll put all those links in the show description as well, so it'll be easy for you to find those. And for everybody that heads over to the Patreon page and checks out the after show last bit of the conversation, thank you so much for pledging. Thank you for listening. And for the rest of you, until next time, the jig is up.
You are the spark that's starting a fire that will spread across this land. And it will be a fire that doesn't burn, but a fire that cleanses. A fire that ignites in our hearts and creates light. No more